So today we are going to be reviewing some libkey and nomad functions. I've gotten a couple of questions, and because I did everyone's setup, I think just kind of reviewing things so that if you do want to tweak things, we can talk about it, might be helpful. Um, Here is our uh, libkey info page. Um, and from here, there's a couple really useful tools. One, you can get directly to your college's browsing, which, oh, no, I probably wanted that in a new window, but um, so you can get directly to your college's browsing. You can also get the code to set up these little widgets that you can put into LibGuides, so browsing journal subjects, and I can help you figure out the different codes for, so like if you want to put one just for history, but have different, like world history or US history or something, we can find all those codes and we can definitely customize those. Directions for libkey nomad. Um, oh, no worries, Isaac. Uh, and we also have all of the examples of how the implementation looks based on the different code. So if you're getting feedback and from your users and want to see what some of the different options are, this is an easy way to kind of look at those different options. Um, but the question that I've kind of received in different forms is like, where does browsing get its info? How does it get its info? Like, why does it show us this and not that? Um, and so I'm just gonna do a brief like example here in the Big Bend one. So the search here is not at the article level. And I think that's one of the things that is maybe not intuitive about it. We see a search bar and we think we can search anything. Um, so just for example, I know we don't have this. Um, and so I search Serials Library and I know that's a journal, but um, it's not in here. However, if I just search library, there's probably some journal with, yeah. So here we can see the different subject areas, or we can go into specific um, journals. So the electronic library, um, and then you can see what you have. Now, here is where you might want to do some tweaking. The way that browsing gets its content is it has a publishing profile in your Alma that tells it what journals with what coverage periods your school has. Um, and it doesn't add um, more open access than what you quote have. And it won't show you things you don't have, and it won't show you things that you don't have activated. So how is that set up? Um, so they have a recommended set construction. And that is what I did for everybody's, unless we needed to tweak it. Seattle, we're still kind of having fun. And you will find that set in your Alma, and it should be pretty, I think it's pretty much called logical set for libkey, do not delete in everybody's. And you can see that the set query is pretty simple. So material type equals journal, and the title is not suppressed. So if something is electronic and it is a journal and it shows up in your Primo, because it is activated, it is getting published to browsing with your activated coverage information in it. So if you go into browsing and you're looking for something that you know you have a subscription to and it's not showing up, it is entirely possible that maybe the material type is wrong, or for some reason that portfolio is suppressed. Or if you go into browsing and you find something and it's not working because you don't have it, then that means that it is published and active in your Primo. So in that case, you can make corrections on the portfolio level. Like you could go in and be like, nope, we don't have architectural products. And you could, you know, edit, you could edit your local portfolio, like go in, do what you need to do there. I'm not going to mess with coverage. This one, obviously, from two different collections. You can, make a local portfolio from something. If the material type is wrong, but you know it's journal, like you can make it a local portfolio and change the material type. Of course, making local portfolios from CZ stuff has got its own impacts. Now, this conversation naturally leads into what Shoreline dealt with. And this was a situation where they had a collection activated with some journals that at one time we think were probably more open access um, titles or articles than they are now. And since there was still a lot of open access, Isaac and Lauren kind of chatted and talked to faculty and had to figure out a compromise between we don't have this, but people want to find it, and we want the open access libkey links to work. So I'm gonna let Isaac kind of show you guys what they all decided to do, and talk through that decision, um, so that if you run into the same thing, maybe it will be helpful.
Hello. All right, I am like working part-time right now, so this is not really a presentation that I'm sharing out, but you can click on the links if you want, if like rather than
You are such an
just
overachiever. You're
just
amazing.
seeing just seeing links that you can't click on. Oh, it is not. It is just like a Google Doc I've thrown some stuff into. All right, can I share? Let's see. We'll share that. Oh, someone's having a meltdown outside in my neighborhood. That doesn't sound good. Okay, can people see my document here? So we had like this issue with a professor who like reported to us that like he could not access some articles. And they happened to be from the Bacon American Institute of like Physics journals. And the librarian who initially reported it to me like was like, oh, we have this, but not this. But uh and they were trying to be helpful, but like honestly, we didn't pay for anything, and just like whatever was showing up for us was just showing up because um whatever we had access to was just like happened to be open access. We like had zero subscription to this at all. But he did like want to be able to search for it for these materials in Primo. So like that put us in this weird situation where we had like this collection that is not free in Alma that was like being proxied was like really the issue. It was being proxied, and it also was kind of deceptive in terms of like what it looked like to end users when they clicked on a link to things and then like got like a link to like the paywalled article. So we had we had an issue where the link to collection, are we seeing Primo, or did you lose me?
Yeah, we're
Um,
seeing Primo, but the share link on your troubleshooting document, people are not able to
oh,
access that. That's all.
hmm. Okay, well,
We can
I
fix it
will share that
later.
afterwards. Yeah. So we were like getting from the link that Primo was providing, we were getting no thanks. We were getting the paywalled journal, and then from the link from libkey up here, we were getting an easy proxy error. And it doesn't do it anymore because I took care of that. But it was telling us to add it to easy proxy. Well, we didn't necessarily want to just add it to easy proxy because we didn't pay for it. So just adding the domain to easy proxy would like not result in access, right? Because like we don't have any relationship with the American Institute of Physics, right? So what I ended up doing was doing like a directive, like to never proxy all the domains associated with the American Institute of Physics, so that like people got there without an easy proxy error, but like they did just like end up at the paywall. And we just added a note to Primo. It was like, don't, you're gonna have limited access to this, and here's the link to ILL if you like are having trouble accessing a particular thing. So we did like have the easy proxy error, and like to follow up on like whether or not like there was any, I did go ahead and like look like at the collection in Alma, right? So we looked it up. We looked at like the settings, like okay, it is set to not free. The proxy is not enabled like on the collection or on the service. Um, I did like see um zoom in. I zoomed way out so I could get the screenshots. That might be a little bit more. So I looked at this, and like we we could see that like it used to be like listed as an open access collection, and like so we're like seeing this in the like history tab of the collection. So it like used to be tagged as open access, and maybe it was, or maybe that was a mistake, but it's not now. And I double checked like our Alma config settings, like where like in the central index and proxy setup, which is in the config under discovery, and like we got this config, discovery, central index, and proxy setup. And so like it is using the proxy for CDI links, which we want, because there are like lots of things that we pay for that like have CDI indexing. Um, and it is not proxying open access records. That doesn't help us here because those aren't open access records anymore. So we had like some choices in terms of like things that we could try to do. Like I could to like resolve the issue with the libkey link, like I could have like messed with the parameters of the set in Alma that publishes to libkey. However, like that would be very fiddly. And for one thing, this one time, like I didn't like want to do it. Because like you can filter it with like a norm rule, and that would be like things on the bib. And uh like I guess I could have added like a local extension to the collections bib, but like I just didn't. That would have been a thing I could have done. I did not do it. I may in the future like look at some other solutions, but what we chose to do was use a never proxy directive so that it would eliminate that easy proxy error at least, so that like people, if they clicked on the libkey link, would be just pushed through to the paywalled page. Uh, you can like look at the directive, and I love the administration pages for Easy Proxy, like because they are not really like super easy to understand, but I um I got the never I knew about never proxy because we used to, when we had Easy Proxy locally hosted, I used to have uh prior to the days like when the CDI proxy settings were like less granular, like I did have quite a few like open access kind of domains, and like other like resources that like may or may not have even been in Primo. I had just like listed those as like never proxies to like make sure that like if the proxy got applied to things that were open access, like on those particular domains, like it just wouldn't try to make it go through the proxy, it would just push it through. So I submitted a ticket for having them add the never proxy directive, which it's here. But it's a directive that you can like use to like exclude certain like domains or certain ports from being proxied. And you can be like pretty broad with it or like very selective with it. It does require after the directive that you also have you yourself or have OCLC add a stanza for the database or like domain that you are wanting to have never proxy apply to. So you like might need to also look up and see if they have a database stanza for that publisher at all. In this case, they did for the American Institute of Physics, and they had like an include file for that that will be like automatically updated. So they just added a line referencing the include file in our config file rather than a like full stanza that would have to be updated like manually. So we did that, and that took care of the issue of it like getting the easy proxy error. Another like thing we could have done would have been like to use anonymous URL, but that is more commonly used for something that you like subscribe to, but like you don't want like a particular part of their database to be proxied. So like that's used more commonly with like the domain that like streaming video or something like that is coming from, so that it like so that performance is not degraded by like all of the traffic like for the person watching the video like goes through the proxy, because that's like not really desirable. It is more of an issue for security, so like I don't know that like I would want to use it for this, but it is another directive that does a similar thing. But it like for this kind of thing, I'm just bringing it up because it is similar, but like might not be the one that you would want to use. Um, yeah, so we look, here's the, so what we ended up doing was going into the electronic collection editor and like adding this public note. And you can put links into notes in Primo. We've done it for other things, linking out to like the app for Canopy and things like that. But you do just need to format them correctly, like with the tag, inside of a tag for a link. So we did that to direct people to interlibrary loan if they want to pursue that. There's that shot of like where to get to the from this is like just like the config. This shot should have ended up higher up in my document. I'll move it. But this is where you will find the central index and proxy setup, which hopefully for everyone, like you've already got it how you want, but it's something you could check if you're having issues. I did confirm like by looking also at the CDI collection list to see like what Ex Libris said about the collection there. And it was no longer in the CDI collection list if it like had been. So that wasn't super helpful, but that did confirm for me like that like the coverage for this was gonna be like under 80%, and that like the Alma collection like information for it like probably was correct, and that it was like not open access anymore. So this is like what it looks like now in our Primo, with the little warning like the access to text in this database is limited to open access articles. For help accessing an article, contact a librarian or request the article through interlibrary loan. Going forward, like I don't think this was like the best solution. It was just a solution. We really need to like weed our electronic collections, which I've had a little bit of trouble like getting librarians to agree to do that in the past, because we've got some people who are just like keep all the things. We might have more success in doing that now that there are going to be like higher standards for accessibility. That might weed out quite a few. So that should eliminate some issues there when we weed the electronic collections. Something else like we could have done would have been like deactivating the portfolios for that collection. That would have resulted in a prompt to log in and request services for the resource. But I don't know like how much content would have shown up for that afterwards in terms of articles. That's something I would want to experiment with something else that a professor is not keen on accessing. Um, as I mentioned before, like, and Carly was showing folks like how libkey works in terms of pushing out like a publishing, like a holdings file to the Third Iron server in order to tell libkey what to apply links to. Um, so we could change the parameters of that set, and we might like if I determine like with an audit that there are enough things that it would make sense to do that. If there are not, like I don't really want to mess with that. Um, given that it's a logical set that you can filter with a norm rule, I'm not sure how I would achieve that. I'm sure I bet I could eventually, but I am not sure. I think and the other thing that I have like on my to-do list would be to document what it was we did, like in the notes for the collection in Alma. And some we also need to like have some other like departmental documentation about ERM, which we don't really have anything that's up to date at the moment. With that is what we did. Was it the best? I don't know, but it does like it is more clear to patrons now what is going on and they don't get an easy proxy error. So
Yeah, and I think I mean, thank you for sharing because this was, I mean, like you worked through all of this while I was out. So I was like, great, handled, cool. But I think you bring up a lot of issues that, like I was guilty of it myself, as an e-resources librarian, but like auditing your e-resources, making internal notes in collections, um, that those are great ways to communicate what you're doing, even if you don't have like so if we uh so like Gale, for example, might be one that, you kind of mess around with how you activate it because you only want certain things found. And that's a very good opportunity to um put some internal notes here to let future um yeah, public notes are going to show up to everyone. A general note is just going to be for like in your internal, like, hey, we kept this not proxied, or we, like made this a local collection because XYZ, or, like, um, because then future edits, audits, checks, accessibility, etc., have some context. I think the other thing that, like this highlights with libkey and browsing is if you don't have a bunch of open access stuff activated, that also is not getting published to your browsing. But if you have a bunch of open access stuff published, um, is that, like messing up your Primo results in a way that you don't want. So I have kind of been percolating on how to add perhaps open access collections to the libkey publishing profile, but not have them show up in Primo. And like how would we do that? So you can get more into browsing, um, but maybe not have to deal with the results and the wonkiness in Primo. So anyone who wants to play with that. We also have the still kind of sitting around open access assessment, collection assessment project that was originally undertaken, oh gosh, 2018, 2019, and is now, I did a big old, yeah, so we've got the old ones and then the new ones. Um, and I wrote down like how things were evaluated. So if this is new to you, I'll go over it. And if it's not, apologies for the repeat. But in 2018 and 2019, um, a bunch of our librarians did some work based on the work of MinPals and evaluated open access collections that were available in the community zone. That was before CDI. And there are hundreds more collections now that are available. And so I kind of took some of those evaluation criteria and simplified them because there's just like more information available now because of CDI. And I made this crazy huge list where I just took stuff with high average bib rank. So that's the CDI assessment of how good the records are. Um, collections that were tagged as fully open access and how many activations there were globally, because some of these are they're not selective or aggregate packages, they're database package, so bib rank is 0. However, we can tell from total activations that it is probably a useful collection. So this list is kind of about as far as it's gotten. I've had a few folks who've hopped in and maybe claimed a collection to make some notes, but not very many. These green ones are ones that were recommended as recently as 2021 by the California Community College League OA project. I do have an example, and I tried not to do too many, so I limited to about 200. So I just kind of did a couple of these Wiley ones, um, and you can put your name in here. This information is all pulled from the CZ, and then I just went and found a public website for the collection, which I thought was really important because that's how we're, like that's how we can assess everything else. Like, let's not rely just on Alma. The primary, um, thanks, Amy. The primary content language. I did a drop down so it wasn't too crazy detailed on like what is the currency um of the content and whether it's kind of general um or more scholarly. Um subject areas I kept as free write and as you can see my deep STEM knowledge um is really showing through here. CTC relevance, I still hadn't decided on these, but again, just to drop down. And all of these fields are optional if you're doing this for any of us. And then, is all the content actually open access? And this was something that I determined by going to the public website and just kind of looking at some of the journal titles and portfolio information. I didn't do significant in primo, sorry, my husband's yelling about dogs. I didn't do primo tests with them. So I, made a comment. And then where licensing information was, if there was a copyright URL, if there was a VPAT or accessibility information, and then if the VPAT actually has its own list, and then, like do you think it's worth looking into more? And so like on this one, I think like I would say no, just because it is health sciences and it's free access to older issues and older medical stuff. Eh, like, sure, it's useful, but do we really need it clogging stuff up? So I'd say no. But then for this one, it is fully really open access and it's, bio and chem and engineering, which are a lot of our 2-year programs. So, yes. So that's just an example, but anyone is free to share this list with your other library team members. Heck, even if you've got like a competent and interested student employee that's capable of finding URLs, like they could probably do this initial work because it really is just information gathering and the opinion part of it is optional. And I'm hoping that we can kind of update this work. I'm happy to then have, good grief, he's loud. Have anyone who's interested write about it or present on it. I don't care to like own this into the future, but we could it would be a great Eluna presentation to just follow up on the work that has been done over the years. So anyway, electronic resource audits, good idea. Open access collections project, good idea. I do have some electronic resource stuff in here. But although these guides, I need to get better at these, but our electronic resource management workshop was recorded, and so you can watch that. I believe it's under trainings. Oh. OCLC e-resources cleanup workshop part 1. Nope. There we go. And here is the link to this little kind of method to the madness, and a few scenarios that you might come up with. It certainly is not exhaustive, but yeah, I'd be happy to put together like another little work group if anyone's interested in having some body doubling to do this kind of work and have some scheduled time to tackle it. I would love volunteers for the OA collections evaluation, because if we have to cut resources, it's good to know where we can get free resources. And I think there's some really cool ones on this list that I didn't know about. So yeah. Uh, so yeah, we've kind of run a whole workflow on LibKey and browsing and electronic collection management. So there are questions on kind of like anything, even if you're like, I don't know if this is related, but we certainly, like got touched on some easy proxy issues as well. Yeah, it's easy to look at all the open collections and also get really excited and just be like, ooh, I can add all this stuff. But one of my experiments I was thinking about doing was basically deactivating all of the like quote subscription collections from one of our sandboxes and only activating like every single open access collection I on our list. So that we'd have like a primo to test stuff in, and just see how crazy the results are. But it surprisingly takes like took way longer than I thought it would. Yes, and I do need to get updated use stats from LibKey. Yeah, I get them quarterly, so the January through March ones should be available. I'll just send a little reminder note. Any any institution can also request their own use statistics, but I think it's just a lot more useful to see it in context with other schools. Um, so, and I can always share out. Um, yeah, and activating ones that you've heard of, like it may not be scientific, but word of mouth is, I mean, that's a real thing. And we will likely find on this list that the decent ones are the ones that we've heard of and not the super random ones. Um, but just my own personal feeling, as former journalism person, um, if if there are open access news sources from elsewhere around the globe, like might not be the worst idea to be activating those this day and age, because the news from other countries is extremely valuable to our students who are from other countries. So, um, and then there are these collections where I'm like, how long will this CDC collection exist? Um, so, um, yeah, so I mean, there's some ones that I hadn't realized existed. There's some small ebook publishers on here that, like activating them might only add 15, 20 titles. Um, but take a look at what those titles are. Maybe they're something that would be great for your students. Hindawi sounds weird, but it is actually very legitimate, and has quite a few open access journals, including ones in the library science world. I did some reviewing for them. IGI has some good library science journals as well. Um, so yeah, I mean, jump in, claim some of these if you're interested. Um, I'm happy to meet with uh, anyone and kind of go through the process if you share this out and have someone who's interested and would like some instructions. Um, the e-resources cleanup workshop is part of the trainings playlist on our Whack to Click YouTube channel. So you can watch those two sessions, and work through the documentation that I created. Um, we can schedule another one of those. Uh, so yeah, um, give people like another minute or so for questions.